Hello there, friends. Hello. Yes. What books are we reading? What show are we watching, friends? I am a Lord of the Rings fan. I'm 42 years old. Spoiler alert. Was born in 1980, and 3 years before I was born, in 1977, there was an animated movie called The Hobbit that came out, and of course, it was an adaptation of the Hobbit book by J.R. Tolkien. Some of you guys, I'm sure everybody remembers it, but what you may not know is that Rankin Bass created it, and it was animated by Topcraft. Topcraft became Studio Ghibli, who is, of course, a very well-known animation studio for a lot of Japanese stuff. Totoro, Spirited Away. So just a little connection for you. But yeah, I love the original Hobbit movie, and the Silmarillion is actually one of the first fantasy books that I ever read. If your first live stream, this is not what I usually do. Usually we're talking House of the Dragon, but I am here to give a story writing and a sort of, I called it Game of Thrones fan watches Lord of the Rings. That's just to advertise. I'm not a Tolkien expert. Like I said, I read the Silmarillion when I was like 9. And it was Chronicles of Narnia. I've got I've got the Chronicles of Narnia right here, and then there's the Lord of the Rings trilogy right there. And I read the Silmarillion when I was 9. It was very formative for me. I did the Silmarillion first because I had seen the animated movies, The Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings. So I had that story, and my dad somehow gave me the Silmarillion, and I read it, a 9-year-old, and I loved it. I was drawing fantasy maps after I read that, and it ignited a love for world building, which is pretty much my favorite part of fantasy as a genre. Obviously, storytelling is always number one, but specifically, I love world building and deep mysteries. That's what I do with the Song of Ice and Fire. So Silmarillion was formative for me. Now, I do not know it like the back of my hand. I have not reread it very much in my adult life, except for in patches to reference the things that George Martin has taken from Tolkien, which is a lot of things. So I know a little bit about Gurthang, Turin, Beleg, all the magic swords, Fingolfin. I've got an approximate idea of the timeline. But here's the thing, guys. The thing about this show, look, I sympathize with you Tolkien fans a lot. Not the racists. The racists can get bent. If you're mad about black elves, this is not the channel for you. For those of you who have commented, I like Corlys Velaryon, I like diversity when it's done right, but not like in Lord of the Rings, y'all can get bent too. This is not your place. You've got no home for racism. This is all make-believe. As George Martin said, we're making this shit up. And if you're uptight about the skin tone of make-believe people or elves, then literally get effed, get lost, find another channel. Just want to get that out of the way. Make it super clear. This is not your spot, blah, 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 blah. Now, here's the thing. What I do sympathize with is the fact that the canon is only distantly related to what's going on the show. They don't have the rights to the Silmarillion, right? And I like Arondir. He's one of my favorite characters. We'll get to Arondir. He's awesome. But they don't have the rights to the Silmarillion. So, there's a really awkward thing here where they're clearly writing their own story using some of the characters from the Silmarillion. Timeline is being moved around. So I get it. If you're watching this show mostly thinking about how are they adapting the canon timeline, it might be rough going for you. Obviously, there's a lot of cool nods to the fans. For example, when all the elves held their swords in the air, it looked like the art of the Oath of Fëanor. But we're not going to tell the Fëanor story. They showed you the hammer that made, the Silmarils and stuff. So they're giving you little nods to the canon, but we're here to tell its own story. So I just want to say, I do understand the angst from a lot of the, like I said, if you're really deep in the lore and you're watching the show and you're like, oh my God, what I would tell you is really just try hard to separate the things in your mind. This is what we had to do with Game of Thrones. It's no secret I hated the ending, but before the ending, A lot of us had this love-hate relationship with it where, we're loyal to the books. We can see that the show is doing its own thing, but there's still enough on the show to enjoy. And so we watch the show and critique the things we didn't like and praise the things we did, as long as we could. Some people just got out of it. But I would encourage you, Lord of the Rings hardcores, to try to see it separately. Because here's the thing. For me, who's not a hardcore Lord of the Rings fan, but who does enjoy the world, I'm really enjoying this show so far. Now, 2 episodes in, who knows how it's going to go. I watched them both last night, and that is. So no, if you don't think it's high quality, then that's fine. But what I'm saying is that from someone who's not looking at it through that lens and who does understand storytelling and I consider myself to have a pretty high bar for stuff. I don't like most movies. I don't watch a lot of shows because I try them and I don't like them. So it's not like I just love everything. I just can be entertained easily. But I really like the show. I think it's doing a lot of things well so far. I don't think the writing is terrible. I think the writing is really good. And I really like a lot of the characters. And so what I'm going to do today is go through some of the characters. And if you disagree, that's fine. I don't like I said, this isn't my block. I'm not here to regulate the fandom or anything like that. Not that I do that anyway, but you know what I'm saying. Like, feel free to discuss in the comments in the chat. If you don't like it, that's fine. You guys can, tear at it. I don't want to see any racist stuff. So if your objection is the skin tone, then, like I said, buzz off. But other than that, feel free to hate on the show or love the show as you feel in the comments. I don't care. But I'm going to tell you what I think of it is basically what I'm here to do. I'm probably just going to go for like an hour. But I'm thinking about this on thematic level and story writing, and I like it. So let me go through, and some of you guys may completely disagree with what I'm saying, but that's okay. So let's start with Galadriel and Gandalf the Grey. I see you've typed that comment in once already. Please don't think the show has anything to do with Tolkien. It has a lot to do with Tolkien. The themes of Tolkien are here. The canon, like I said, is much different. But yes, it feels like Middle-earth to most people. So if you're just going to keep saying that over and over, I don't know, you can, but you're going to have a bad time, like I said. So Galadriel, in my opinion, is everything that a fantasy character should be. She's powerful. She conquers ice wastes, the ocean, elven politics. So already we see that she's a character that can transcend her environment. The sea dragon is called a fish dragon, apparently. So, I really like Galadriel. I like the fact that she is obsessive and kind of hardcore. It's obviously not cool the way that she treats her fellow soldiers, but that's meant to show you like how obsessed she is. So I dig this character. I think that the way that they're using evil and the threat of Sauron in this show is really interesting. They're using it a little different. And thanks for the super chat, Aola. And I'm always happy to LARP at a Ren Fair myself, but I like the way that they're using evil is it's this, the idea is like you can't ever, evil never really goes away. It's because you have to remember gods and devils, whether you're talking about mythology or stories like this, they're always personifications of good and evil. The devil just represents the concept of evil. So evil never goes away. It can never sleep. And so Galadriel has become obsessed with both revenge and also with hunting this evil. But the thing is, and that's what I'm saying. See, like if you're criticizing the character of Galadriel because she's not the way that she's supposed to be in the books, I can't help you. I don't really remember how she's supposed to be in the Silmarillion. I'm just really going to respond to the character that's on the screen. And what I'm asking, or I'm not asking because I don't really care, but I'm just suggesting that if you can manage to put aside what you think Galadriel's supposed to be based on the Silmarillion, there's a good character here on the screen. That's what I'm talking about, is the one I see on the screen. And so she's hunting down this evil that sleeps. The thing is that the elves have been caught by surprise and massacred before. Is it it's Gondolin, right? And I believe there's a couple of them. But the idea that like the elves being complacent and thinking that the war is over, that's obviously not the right headspace to be in. And we know, of course, that Sauron isn't fully dealt with and stuff like that. So this character Galadriel, she is hunting down this evil. She's to the point where she's almost, like I said, she's treating her fellow soldiers very poorly, But the interesting thing to me is that she finds this evidence that Sauron is still active. And then she comes back to Fingolfin and Elrond, and there was some really good politics that were going on here. So the idea, they used this ceremony where they're honoring Galadriel, right? But instead of what they were actually doing was silencing her point of view. And this is something that happens in real world politics all the time. So yeah, and Winter's Lady, I've read that quote before, that Galadriel was Amazonian, according to Tolkien, and that she was warlike, arrogant, and proud. Not known for wielding a sword necessarily, but I don't think it's unbelievable. But like I said, I'm not really caught up in that. I'm just looking at what's on there. So what's really interesting is that she comes back, right? They use this political ceremony to honor her, quote unquote. But then Gil-galad actually gives the conclusion, not that she came to, which is that the evil is still out there, but rather that, oh, it's fine and that the war is over. So Gil-galad has put his own conclusion on Galadriel's research, but is using Galadriel's face to lend credibility to the conclusion. So everyone thinks that that's what Galadriel found, and then they essentially try to silence her by sending her to the Blessed Lands, which is usually an honor. And so then you get this really interesting thing where she's sailing towards the light, and it's supposed to be glorious and wonderful, and it is if you're like Frodo, and you've already finished your conflict, and you're just looking for a peaceful retirement. Then it's great. But Galadriel clearly has not finished her conflict. She's constantly talking about this, the stuff that's inside of her, the memory of these traumas and horrors and deaths. And her conflict is not resolved, clearly. So she's not ready to go to the Blessed Lands. And so I love how menacing it felt. It's supposed to be like heaven, but it felt like institutionalization. It felt like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest being wheeled into the operating room. That's really how it felt. So it's interesting how they've taken this idea of heaven and turned it into this really ominous, horrific feeling thing. It was horrific, yeah. And then she dives back down. I like the way that she's used her brother's advice about, you've got to, sometimes you have to look at the darkness before you can decide to reach the light. And that makes sense to me. Because that's what all of these characters that aren't happy with. See, I don't think Tolkien would have hated that at all. One of the major things about Lord of the Rings is characters that aren't happy with their circumstances and they seek for adventure or something bigger outside of their culture. That's what obviously Bilbo and Frodo are about. We see that with Galadriel. She's not content with how the rest of her culture wants to live. We see that with Arondir. He doesn't want to leave. He hasn't given up on people when the elves have. And we also see that with the Harfoot. What's her name? Nori. She's not happy with the way that her people live, and she wants to see the outside world. That's how Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit started, is with characters that were curious about the outside world. Okay? So chafing against that is crucial. And that line at the beginning where they're like, evil, nothing ever starts out evil in the beginning. So I think what they're showing you is that, it's really about order and chaos. The idea of heaven is maximum order. Everyone is on the same page. There's no strife. There's no contention. It's just perfect and wonderful. And the whole idea with Eru Ilúvatar singing the world into existence, but Melkor putting in the dissonant note that starts the trouble, that is Tolkien wrestling with order and chaos, which are the classic principles of all mythical creation stories and a lot of just structure of evil and good in the world in general. A lot of people see it as order and chaos. So what's going on is that, we're introduced to this idea that chaos is evil with the Melkor thing. He's put in the disharmonious note in the song, this has let evil into the world, and this and that. But at the same time, all the characters who are chafing against their environment and curious about the outside world, and they're restless and they're unhappy with the confines of the culture, those people are kind of chaos agents as well. And so they're showing you that curiosity can go different ways. And they even talk about that with Galadriel, like Gil-galad foresees that perhaps Galadriel could unleash the evil that she seeks to destroy, because the same wind that seeks to blow out a fire can fan its flames. That's exactly what we're talking about. And it's the same thing with Bilbo, like when he discovers the ring. Like it would have just stayed in that cave with Gollum, for years and years and never caused anyone trouble. But because Bilbo went adventuring and then went, stole the ring and played the game with Gollum and did all that, he brought the ring out to where it could cause trouble and had to be dealt with. So I think that not Martin, at least talking about Martin, I think that Tolkien has been exploring the good and bad side of chaos from the beginning. And this is why I disagree with people that paint Tolkien as very black and white with his morality. And Martin has even contributed to that by talking about, the orcs. The orcs are, and the evil Dark Lord, and I'm interested in great characters and stuff. Well, in other quotes, Martin has also reflected an awareness of Tolkien's, complexity. And I do believe that this show is picking up on that really well when they're talking about this, starting with Galadriel. But like I said, it applies to all these other characters, to where this urge for chaos, fighting against the structure of the world, it can lead to trouble, but it can also lead to heroism. And we're going to see it go different ways with different characters. And so they're paralleling Galadriel's restlessness and dissatisfaction with that of all these other characters. Like I said, Nori, Arondir, Bronwyn, and all the characters from the past of Lord of the Rings. So thematically, I think it's tuning into some of the most important themes. And I'll go ahead and skip ahead to Arondir, because there's another good theme here. So Arondir is different than the elves because he still sees good in some of the humans, right? The other elf that's with him is like, these people are still bad. That's why we keep a watch on them, and you'll be glad not to see him again. So that's a very dismissive, judgmental view of the humans there. And of course, these are the humans that live in the lands that eventually become Mordor and were the allies of Melkor in the past war and stuff. So these are humans that there's reason to be suspect of them. However, Arondir has seen the good in some of these people, obviously Bronwyn first and foremost. And so Arondir has not given up. And seeing the good in people is a major theme of all of Tolkien's writing. I mean, it's not even cryptic. That's something they talk about with some of Bilbo's monologues and stuff like that. So Arondir, I think, is a character that exemplifies a very important aspect of Tolkien's writing, which is seeing the good in things, even when they're conflicted and even when they're complicated. So I really like this character. He's everything that an elf should be, in my opinion. He's brave and cunning, but he's also very self-possessed. So he's not easily triggered by the taunting. He diffuses the anger very skillfully. He prevents the bartender from hitting the guy that was taunting him. So he's constantly working to create peace and to diffuse the racial tension between the elves and the humans. So that automatically makes him a heroic character and somebody that I would sympathize with. And I like how he's a little more, Legolas was very charismatic and talkative and verbose. Arondir's a little more withdrawn and composed. I like that. And I will say that, by the time they're using pointy ear slurs against Arondir, I really wasn't thinking about his skin tone anymore. So I don't know. Like I said, it's pretty easy for me to get immersed in the world I took a second to be like, oh, it's a black elf. That's different. But like I said, by the time they're throwing, knife ear slurs at him, then I'm just thinking about him as an elf at that point. So I bought it. Nothing seemed forced to me or weird or something like that. So now, as far as Rings of Power and House of the Dragon, comparing them, they're just such different stories. So you can only compare them as far as like, are they succeeding at what they're trying to do? There's obviously a lot of parallels, but the way that the storytelling and the world feels is just totally different. So I like that the Rings of Power is embracing the high fantasy world that we recognize from the movies. It does feel a little more gritty and realistic than the Lord of the Rings movies. There's a little bit less campiness and a little bit less cutesiness, which I really like. To me, the Lord of the Rings movies, I liked them, but the thing that ruined it for me was all the campiness. Some of it I realize is part of it, but I kind of feel like it went a little far. It's okay, whatever, it's fine. I don't get worked up about it, but I like that this show feels just a little more gritty. It's not trying to be Game of Thrones by any means, but it definitely feels a little more gritty. So, and then with the orcs and Bronwyn, since they're related to Arondir, I'll mention them real quick. You can see why Arondir likes Bronwyn, because Bronwyn is honorable, and she also tries to see the good in people. She tries to warn the villagers twice. She warns them once, and they very rudely dismiss her, but she still comes back. After she kills the orc with her son, she comes back and warns them again. So I like that. And the orc scene was really good. I thought it was a very smart choice to introduce just one orc and have that be a menace, because it makes it more intimidating later when you see an army of orcs. If you just start off with an army and they get chopped down, it's not as impressive. So I thought that was a good storytelling move. Show us one orc and just, a woman and her son. So a very, not a warrior, having to use teamwork. And I thought the whole fight was well choreographed. The son strangles the orc and you think he's won, but he's dangling there within reach of the orc. So you realize for him to hold on to the rope is to expose himself to the claws of the orc. So that was a cool moment of bravery for the kid. And then the mother and the son have bonded a little bit. What the hell is that friggin' sword that the kid has? Why does he have like a dark sword or whatever the hell that is? It looks like a Morgul blade of some kind. And of course it has this, that little sigil of Sauron or whatever the hell that is. The Lord of the Rings, it's not that the movies weren't gritty enough. It's just that I found some of the campiness sort of undercut it. No, there were definitely some gritty scenes in the movies too. But the dialogue here just seems a little more realistic and less fantastical. I like the vibe of it, I guess is what I'm trying to say. It feels just a little more adult. Lord of the Rings definitely very kid-friendly. I don't know that this series is trying to be super kid-friendly as much. So, so that's all I have to say about the orcs and Bronwyn. Let's talk about Meteor Man. You guys know I want to talk about Meteor Man. So obviously everyone is debating who the Meteor Man is. I like the idea that it's Sauron. I do not like the idea that it's Gandalf. The Gandalf thing doesn't make sense, mostly because you see the magic that Meteor Man is using is all the fireflies die. Gandalf doesn't kill the moths when he whispers to him, but you see this guy whispering I hope it was Thorin's sword, but they don't have the rights to Children of Húrin, which is where that story comes from. So, but I watched the Nerd of the Rings breakdowns, by the way, just to make sure I had my understanding of what was happening correct and I didn't mislead people. So, shout out to Nerd of the Rings. They said they didn't think it was Turin's sword because they don't have the rights to that content. But also the fact that it has the that rune in it and it lights up with fire. I mean, it really seems like a dark thing. It seems like a Morgul blade of some kind. And also they're in that territory where the people were sort of loyal to Morgoth. Like when the angry guy in the bar says, "Our king will come back and set us free." Like, who's he talking about? He's talking about Morgoth? I thought that was an interesting question. So Meteor Man, he could be Sauron. If he's not Sauron, he's some sort of very high being like a Maiar or whatever. But I don't think, the reason why I don't think it's too obvious that he's Sauron is because if you read him as Sauron, it's incredibly interesting. Whoever it is obviously has memory loss. They don't know who they are, and they don't know where they are, and they're very confused. So this is a very powerful being. Yeah, blue wizards is a possibility. People are saying it could be a Balrog even. I've only thought about the Balrogs as the big monsters. I guess Balrogs can be humans too. That's news to me, actually. And that shows you, like, that's where my knowledge is. I don't know everything there is to know about it. But Sauron, so at this time, Sauron is supposed to be sort of quietly gathering support. And he reappears as an elf friend. I forget that he's got a name that means the gift giver. And that's when he gives advice to Celebrimbor about making the rings, and he spikes them with evil and stuff. So if they change this to Sauron, it would work. Instead of, surfacing in hiding as Anatar. So instead of surfacing as Anatar, he's come back to Earth as this bewildered old man who will eventually take on the identity of Anatar, the gift giver. Celebrimbor, thank you, not Celebrimbor, Celebrimbor. So I didn't mean to turn him into celery. He's very tall, but that's, Celebrimbor, thank you. Please do correct me on any other. I know how important the pronunciations are. So, Martin says whatever, pronounce it how you want. But yes, there are correct pronunciations, so, in Lord of the Rings land. Okay, so, like I said, this character, whoever it is experiencing memory loss, and they've obviously got huge magic. Like, every time they do something, if they're startled or scared or angry, you see all this stuff happening. The wind blows and everything starts bending. And so he's obviously someone has huge magic, but doesn't know who he is. So that, to me, is a really, really interesting story writing question. Just like, who is that? And if it is Sauron, it's a fun new angle on Sauron, because we're seeing Sauron's id. Not his conscious mind, but just his basic instincts and most deeply held, ideas or beliefs. Like, he's trying to sketch out some important constellation. He's saying a couple of words which could mean something like hand of fire or hand of heat or something like that. So says Nerd of the Rings. So yeah, it could be Tom Bombadil. The only thing is that, mana, he's saying the word mana. The only thing is that, like, the fact that the fireflies die and that there's all these other little sort of... He just feels kind of dark. It's like the only reason he's not destroying people and doing evil shit is because he doesn't know who he is. Now, Bombadil is kind of a gray character, so I get why people could think that. But to me, the death undertones are the strongest. So I think this is either Sauron or someone else that's got a very dark side to them. So without going any further guessing who it is, because I don't really know. I just love the idea of reapproaching a powerful character, whether it's Gandalf or Sauron or some other powerful wizard, and showing him as this clueless childlike state. It's very interesting writing choice, and I can't wait to see where it goes. I also think it's interesting that they have tied the plot of Meteor Man to the Harfoots, who are obviously like the Hobbits. They're predecessors of the Hobbits, and they are very childlike themselves. They're kind of... I like how the Harfoots... First of all, Cleo, come here, girl. We have a Cleo request. I like the Harfoots better than the Hobbits. I don't know if that's heresy, but I definitely do. I think they're more interesting. I like how they're more hippied out, and they're sort of, they migrate and stuff, and they hide. I really like that. So there's similarities to the Hobbits. Yeah, they're kind of like feral hobbits, but they're different also. And I really like the culture and the discussion. And let me tell you, I did not think I was going to like the Harfoots. I'm not a huge fan of the hobbits. I appreciate why they're in there, and I think they are important. I wouldn't take them out of the story. But especially in the movies, I found the hobbits very tedious. So, I like the Harfoots better myself than I did the Hobbits on the movie. And I like that they're astrologists. Yep, I dig that. I like how they keep their records with the pictograms. I think that's really interesting. And so I'm really curious what they're doing, tying Meteor Man, who is this powerful wizard, but in a childlike state, to these childlike Harfoots. I dig that. So, I mean, lots of people hate the Hobbits. I don't feel like that's controversial. I mean, lots of people, or at least they're, love-hate the Hobbits, frustrated with them. Like, okay, great, Hobbits. When's the next scene? That's just how I am. I like Gurthang. I like Turin. I like the black swords. That's where I'm at. But I dig the Harfoots, and I'm curious to see what they're gonna do. Like if they had put Meteor Man, if he had landed in a place where the people are, humans or elves, they'd be looking at this person very skeptically and treating him as a threat. But these people are, or not these people. It's really just Nori and her friend that knows about him. So the Harfoots are hobbits. I call them predecessors. They are one type of hobbit. I guess that's more correct. Sorry. In any case, not hated, but yeah, come on. Especially with like the Frodo, Master Frodo, the Frodo and Sam, endless dialogue at the end of the movie. Oh, I found that to be so tedious, but whatever. I don't care if I'm committing Lord of the Rings heresy. Like I said, it's not my block. I'm a Song of Ice and Fire fan, but I do like Lord of the Rings. So, in any case, I dig the connection there. So these Harfoots, or at least Nori is approaching this Meteor Man character in a different way than the big people would. So I'll have to see what they're doing with that. I think it's a very interesting choice that's clearly got some. It's going somewhere. And let's see, what other thoughts did I have on here? I like the dwarves. Oh yes, I like the dwarves better too. The dwarves in Lord of the Rings to me were too campy, too jokey, too cartoonish, and they're supposed to be a little bit like that, but they should be a little more intimidating. I found the dwarves to be more intimidating here. I really liked the whole dialogue between Durin and Elrond, and the way that Durin nursed his grudge, because I have stoic friends. And the thing about a stoic is they don't tell you when you've offended them. They don't tell you what you've done wrong. If you're acting totally clueless, they'll just let you keep acting clueless and never even tell you, what you've done to offend them. So that to me was really interesting when Elrond thinks he's playing politics. Like he goes and he competes with Durin and shows that he's tough and he can break a lot of rocks, but he's not really trying to humiliate Durin in his home. So he eventually gives in and then thinks that he's playing politics and is using that to open this conversation. But when he does, he gets shut down because he's completely clueless about the offense that he's given. So I really liked the way that it came out, the way that Durin was kind of like, oh yeah, I've lived a whole life. I've done all this and you missed it. And you really get that. And that's how it is. Like once you tap into a stoic's grudge and you've become aware of it, like they will tell you. And so I just felt like that was a really good conversation. But then Elrond is a skilled politician and a very empathetic person, and he does find a way to navigate the tension and the grudge and show kindness. And then it went on from there. And I really liked the dinner scene. I really liked Disa. I liked the dynamic. It was like a little bit cutesy and a little bit campy, but not too much. It's supposed to be kind of sweet and endearing. When she's overruling him, she will stay for dinner. But I found myself smiling as opposed to rolling my eyes. So I like that. I like that the dwarf metal and technology looks more grounded. Like I said, less cartoonish. Sometimes it's just sound effects and the shimmer on the metal, but I really liked the door and the way it opened. I like this idea that the dwarves have some secret technology, which is probably mithril or something like that. As people have said, that they're sort of keeping a wraps on. And so that also accounts for the change in the reception that Elrond got. Like he was, he considers himself to be good friends with the dwarves, but stuff has changed. Not only has he, not been there and created this grudge with Durin, the dwarves have obviously stumbled upon some new technology, and they are being secretive about it. So, yeah. Yeah, I mean, if people want to super chat to say something negative, then thanks for the money, I guess. And I don't know. People want to get there. They want to express themselves, and people have strong feelings about Lord of the Rings. But like I said, I'm not saying that my opinion is hashtag facts, but I will just tell you that as someone who is not worried about the canon and it doesn't have the canon deeply imprinted in their mind, it's pretty easy to watch the show and enjoy it. Both me and Minty enjoyed it and thought it was really good, and curious to see the next episode. So I would just say, I mean, if you want to hate it, then that's fine. But if you can find a way to just separate the book canon and the show canon, there is a good show here to enjoy. And it does feel like Middle-earth to me. But I understand the people that hate it and just can't like it. I get it. I'm not saying y'all are bad people, But I think it's pretty good for, all the reasons that I said. I like the integration of more people of color, but I think it would have been better if there were more of them to feel integrated in the world. Well, we'll see. We've only gotten a glimpse of things, so we'll just have to see how it goes. Now, I have to say that the thing I'm most excited about to see is Numenor. The Numenorians, I mean, they're Atlantis. They are Tolkien's version of Atlantis, straight up. Like, that's not even a mystery. The Great Empire of the Dawn is kind of the Atlantis of A Song of Ice and Fire. Valyria has vague Atlantis vibes, but it's too recent to really be Atlantis. Numenor is Atlantis. And you guys might know that I have plans to write my own fantasy series that I call pseudo-Atlantis. So instead of being pseudo-medieval, I want to set it in a fantastical ancient Bronze Age that is sort of like what I imagine Atlantis could have been. I don't believe Atlantis was real, by the way. I just find the stories about it to be very interesting. So I am looking forward to Numenor very, very much so. And I think the guy on the ship that finds Galadriel at the end could be Elendil. That's what Lord of the Rings said. That would make sense. They've kept Numenor, we haven't seen it yet. They're keeping it. So it'll be maybe introduced to it in the third episode. That makes sense. But yeah, that's the thing that I'm going to have the strongest feelings about. Like, if they don't do Numenor right, I might feel like, disappointed in that. But it's not necessarily that it needs to feel exactly like the books. It just needs to feel, Atlantean. It needs to feel different than human cities. So we'll see. We'll see how they do with that. But I'm very excited to see Numenor. And that's the thing that got me with this show. I was like, okay, well, if we're doing Numenor, then I got to watch it, So, yeah, guys, so questions. I'll take some questions if you have questions for me. Like I said, I'm going to keep the stream short and wrap it up in under an hour. That was my plan. Get ready for House of the Dragon. Don't want to miss Tony's stream. And Costume Co. is actually doing a stream on Rings of Power. They just started. I didn't see that they were streaming at this time, or I might have scheduled mine at a different time. So definitely go check out Costume Co.'s Rings of Power stream after I wrap this up. Constantine says, well, no, there was a person of color outside the main cast. One of the villagers, one of the two nomads with the giant elk antlers on their back, isn't one of them was a black person, wasn't it? I believe. So there was at least, it was either him or like a villager. But we'll see. Yeah, we've only seen like a few elves, really. So Zasmine reviews, just got here. What storyline did I like the most so far? The best scene was probably Elrond and Durin. But my favorite character is Galadriel. I really like that Galadriel's kind of obsessive and like kind of edgy. And you can see why the other elves are a little suspicious of her and might want to sideline her and think that she's dangerous and maybe she'll make the problem worse, because she is really intense. But also that level of intensity and dedication and obsession is kind of necessary to hunt down the enemy in the frozen waste. So I like how she's not purely a good character. She seems like a gray character, and Galadriel always did feel like that. Like when she picks up the ring in the movies and I could become, a terror or whatever. Like that was pretty edgy. So I like that Galadriel is kind of obsessive right now, and she's going to have to learn how to deal with that. Somebody's saying she's kind of a one-note character. Well, she is. She is an obsessive character. But I think that she's being thrown very interesting challenges. Like she's thrown physical challenges and then political challenges and then a question of the soul with whether or not to go to the Blessed Lands. So she's definitely an extreme character. Like I said, she is obsessive. She's very focused on one thing. But I like how they're testing her in different ways. And I think that her zealotry is something that is going to have to gain some nuance in order for her to really deal with the challenge that she wants to deal with. So, yeah. And look, there's no secret why Amazon is having to put a delay on the reviews. It's because thousands and thousands of racists are trying to review bomb this show. I'm not saying that everyone that doesn't like the show is a racist. Not at all. But it is a fact that there are tons of white supremacists who have read Tolkien as some sort of Nazi fantasy and are defending this show on that grounds loudly in every online forum. And those people are absolutely the type that review bomb and try to sway online opinion by doing organized fucking bullshit. So that is why Amazon is hiding the reviews, and I do not blame them at all. We knew this was going to be an issue as soon as we saw that there were non-white characters in the story. So, yeah, I don't think you can fault them for that, really. Ultimately, because the accusation there is that, they're trying to hide the fact that people don't like the show. They can't do that. If the show isn't good and people don't like it, then it's going to fail. You know what I mean? Like the word's going to get out. People won't watch it. The viewers will go down. They can't. It's a silly thing to even think that they could try to hide negative opinion of the show. If people don't like it, they'll stop watching it. So I don't think there's a conspiracy there. They're dealing with a very mobilized, vocal, and very hardcore racist. Like, I'm not talking about the people that object to Corlys Velaryon, okay? There's some racism there for sure. I'm talking about these people are hanging out on white supremacist 4chan. They've got the white power tattoos and stuff. There's a lot of those people that idolize Lord of the Rings and Tolkien as a Nazi fantasy. Like I said, there's no way to step around that. And so those people and the lesser people that are sort of absorbed into their scene, they do have to be dealt with and stepped around and whatever. So, that's just something that we've got to deal with. I'm kind of glad that I'm not trying to cover this show full time and that I don't have to deal with that, because I made one video about Corlys Velaryon being black and I delete 10 comments every day from that video. And some days it gets going when the video goes around and there's just so many. And some of it is so ugly. White supremacist 4chan, also known as 4chan. Yeah. So yeah, it is what it is. But the thing is that it's Lord of the Rings is still cool. It belongs to everyone. Tolkien was not some sort of white supremacist. So I think it's fine to just sort of step around those people and enjoy the show for what it is. And I am glad that it is, evolving into the future. There's just no reason to hold on to the idea that fantasy people of any given race, elves people, the people from such and such land, need to have the skin tone that's white or else it isn't right. I mean, that's just fucking racist as hell. I'm sorry. It's never a canon argument. Like, it just isn't. I don't buy any of that shit. So, yeah. In case you can't tell, I'm trying to trigger the racists as hard as I can. I don't want them on my channel. I just want them to go away or leave a comment so I can ban them and they can never comment again. That's my only desire for those people. Besides that they would re-examine their hearts and all that. But that's not my job. So yeah, last call. Questions about the show, and then I'll wrap it up. So yeah, I already addressed the problems with the canon. Like, obviously, the fact that they don't have the rights to the Silmarillion is weird, and it creates a lot of problems where they have to step around. Like, even just watching the Nerd of the Rings videos, there were several points where you had to say, oh, well, they can't talk about that legally. And that's just such a weird thing to have to say. You know, I'm glad we don't have to deal with that with Song of Ice and Fire. So they've created an awkward situation by not getting the rights to the Silmarillion. There's no doubt. And there are massive canon issues that have nothing to do with skin tone, of course. So what I'm saying is, like, you know, check out the show for what it is. Separate the canons in your head. That is my advice. Cheryl with a PayPal, and thanks for the reminder. I am wondering if Rowan is Sauron. Oh, is that the little kid? He's already angry, but it was more his blood that activated the sword when he wanted to grab it. It could be Halbrand. Yeah, okay, so the kid is interesting. Like, he kills an orc, and he shows bravery, so we kind of like him, but he's also keeping this really dark thing a secret as well. So he's definitely there's an edge to that character. It would be interesting if he became the avatar for Sauron. I could see that. That would be an interesting writing choice. Halbrand, I like the idea that, is that the wrong kid? Who are we talking about then? Who's Rowan? Well, I find the kid interesting. Yeah, he's creepy. And I'm talking about Bronwyn's kid with the sword. Yeah, which one is, sorry, I don't know all the names. Which one is Rowan? The other kid. Which other kid? His friend. Oh, okay. He didn't stand out to me as much. The kid is Theo. Yeah, okay. So Theo's grabbed my attention. The other kid I did not. I could watch it back and see, but yeah, I didn't have any thoughts on the other kid. Rowan's the one who picked the fight. Oh, okay, right. Gotcha. Right. So yeah, the creepy one with the sword, that's what's interesting. So yeah, okay, so people are saying the angry kid could turn out to be Sauron. Yeah, I don't know. I don't have a comment on that. I didn't notice him as much. Anatar means gift bringer. It does. So it does. But the Halbrand character is interesting. There's a theory that he could become one of the 9. He's definitely edgy. Obviously, he separated the raft and sacrificed all of his other people. We don't know if they were friends or who they were, but he definitely sacrificed them to save himself. So he's a pretty dark character. He's kind of implied as a king, isn't he? It's like he's got the bag with the sigil, and he's like, oh, my people don't have a king. So he's either the king or, you know, he's got this artifact from the king. So I do think that Halbrand could turn out to be Witch King, whose identity is not known. I like that. So, yeah. So Zasmine reviews, I talked about Meteor Man. I do like the idea that he's Sauron. Now, I'm not going to be the one that guesses this right. I don't know the lore. I can't read the clues. I do like the idea that they talk about Melkor's fire being without heat. And then, you know, when Nori touches the burning coal, it's without heat as well. That heavily spells out that Meteor Man is tied to dark magic at the very least. It doesn't seem like a coincidence that they would mention that. This idea of things that are supposed to be hot that aren't because they're evil. Remember they said it's so cold that the torches don't give off any heat in Melkor's fortress. That's what it was. So I think that's a good tie-in and heavily implies that Meteor Man is evil. And I like the idea that he's evil but childlike, and so it humanizes him. It makes him more complex than just being the Dark Lord flat out. So, yep, I'm looking forward to seeing what they're doing with it. So the Witch King is never said to have been a former king of Numenor, just a lord. Yeah, Nerd of the Rings, Nerd of the Rings, who obviously knows their shit. They were saying that that Halbrand could be the Witch King, so I assume that doesn't violate the canon too bad. Although obviously the show can, is changing the canon where it needs to be. Yeah, I really don't think it's Gandalf. That would be a huge change because Gandalf isn't supposed to be there till the Third Age. It doesn't seem like that would be a change. It could be one of the other wizards because that's something that you would do if you wanted to make a new character for the story that's kind of like Sauron, kind of like Gandalf, somewhere in the middle, kind of like Saruman, but you don't want to mess with the canon of their characters. You take a different wizard that we don't know much about and develop their character. So that would fit as well. But all the Fireflies dying, I mean, they really put our attention on that. So he's got to be somewhat evil. I like the way they're using the map in between the scenes. I'm a big map fan, so very cool that they're using the map to sort of show us around where we're going. I like the pacing so far. I like that they're opening up the different mysteries. To me, all the different characters relate to each other because they're all characters, like I said, who are chafing against whatever complacency surrounds them. And they're all people that are sort of on the lookout for evil. Like you get the feeling that Arondir and Galadriel would make a good team if they can find each other. They're both focused on the same thing. Eventually, they've got to come in contact with each other. These are people that are watching out, that are more vigilant than others for the great evil. So, yeah, you can see how they're setting up some of these characters to work together. And I think we'll get to the elves, doing their normal skilled fighting and stuff. I mean, you could see a glimpse of it when Arondir caught the guy's fist. He's obviously got really quick reflexes. He just got taken by some orcs in the cave. He'll probably fight his way free, So we saw that quick glimpse of what would have been the War of Wrath or some version of it. But yeah, we just really haven't seen the elves fighting yet. I did like the elven politics quite a bit with Gil-galad and Elrond. Because you could tell that Gil-galad kind of used Elrond. And Elrond wasn't sure if he did the right thing. And then they sort of distracted him with Celebrimbor. The great honor of working with Celebrimbor. Yeah, so Meteor Man accidentally snapped the ankle of the Harfoot leader. And so that just shows you, like, he's got dark magic pouring out of him, but he just doesn't know how to control it. So these things are happening accidentally. The Fireflies die. Somebody breaks their ankle. It's just the nature of his magic. So. Yeah, accidentally, because it didn't seem like he was consciously focusing on that guy and trying to break his ankle. He accidentally did a sort of sympathetic magic. So. Pretty cool. I dig it. I don't know who Meteor Man is, but I'm curious to see. So it's a good mystery that they've introduced. And of course, Tolkien does love his magic meteors. They usually turned into swords, but... And yeah, Sketchpaint, you're joining late, but I had the same thoughts about Arondir. I really like him. Yeah, I definitely think Celebrimbor is going to make the Rings of Power. The show's called The Rings of Power. So we definitely have to make the Rings of Power on the show. Yeah, I'm definitely still going live for House of the Dragon afterwards. This is just... I felt like I'm not really doing anything right now. Like, I finished my last video, which some of you guys may have missed, by the way. I did 2 this week. I did the True Sun, which was a symbolic analysis. And, yeah, my voice just hasn't warmed up yet. It's kind of early for streaming. I'll be all right. And I did a video called the new game, the new Throne game. So check those out. But yeah, I just kind of wasn't doing anything. I figured I'd hop on and talk Lord of the Rings. But yeah, I do need to go rest my voice and stuff. So let me go ahead and wrap this up. And I am enjoying it. I might continue to cover it with live streams here and there, but probably not, too regularly, just here and there. So go check out Costume Co's stream on Rings of Power. Tell him I sent you. And also, of course, Tony Teflon with the pregame show in a couple of hours. Quinn is going to be on. So check that out. All right, guys. Thanks for coming, and I'll see you later. Later tonight after the show.